I'm Corey, and this is my story. I always grew up in a Christian home. I went to Christian school. I'd always been in church. It was just something that was always a part of my life, and I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it. I wasn't opposed to it. I had really good, strong Christian friends and Christian teachers and stuff like that in my life that really influenced me. I went through, and every day we had a Bible class, so I learned a lot about Jesus every day, a lot about God, and so it was never really a problem for me wondering if God was real or if Christianity was right or things like that. It was more of just me having a knowledge and not really believing. And in middle school, around 8th grade, I really realized that I wasn't sure if I believed that for me. I had started to question my salvation and wonder if I really believed that for me. And so I always justified it by looking to a vague moment in the past and saying that, well, that was when I got saved, and I have to be saved because look at me now and look at all the things that I'm doing. Everybody called me a leader. They said that I was a role model and a really good person, but I didn't realize that at the time none of that mattered. It was all about my heart, and I had a lot of head knowledge, but I just didn't believe it. So 9th grade happened, and I still had all these questions and that weren't really answered, but I always justified it and just tried to move on and disregard it. But something always pounded at my heart every single time that a preacher gave an invitation, and I just couldn't handle it. 10th grade year, I went to a revival, and the speaker was talking about how in the desert, the Israelites were all bitten by snakes, and God decided to tell Moses that if he put a bronze serpent up and they all looked at it, that they would be saved. And I wasn't really making any connections. And then the speaker said that just because the Israelites knew that it would save them, if somebody was dying of a snake bite and they just knew, nothing would happen. They actually had to take the step, know that they believed, and look. And I realized that I never did that. I had all this knowledge about who God was and what Jesus was like and what he'd done, but I never applied that to my life. And so that night I decided that not only was it real, but it was real for me, and that's the only thing that I needed. And so that night I met Jesus, and he changed my life, and I had a peace after that. And after you get saved, most of the time people think that your life gets easier, but that year was probably the worst year of my high school. At the time, I didn't realize that God was really just taking me out to something much better, but I was holding on as tight as I could to the things that I'd always clung to, and so God was really just trying to purge those things out of me and make me who he needed me to be. That same year, Katie Carter died, and she was somebody that I'd really gotten close with that year. And so a lot of my friends had invited me to Alice Drive, but I'd never been. And then after all that happened, I decided that I would go and be there for them and kind of comfort them. But in a way, Katie kind of left her mark even after she was gone. And so for the first time, I felt not only welcomed, but called at church. And so Jesus not only used the church to bring me, but he used it to grow me. And so I was taking next steps. It wasn't too long after I came here that I found out about the auditions for the worship team, and I auditioned and got in, and I just got closer with Christ, and I felt more connected with him than I'd ever been before, and I felt a real progression and growth in my faith. And recently I took my next step and got baptized, and it's peaceful and assuring now, knowing that what I'd always done and what I was and how I'd acted wasn't what saved me, but it was Jesus taking the time, dying on the cross, and being what I could never be, doing what I could never do. And that's really what made the difference. And that's my story.